Hello, hello, hello. This is a reply to Michael Markman. Michael is again. I think he was something to do with media back in the day. But he left a comment on my Doctor Who review. Go read it. I did a Doctor Who review of the first 2 episodes of the series 14, 1. I don't know what they're calling it, on Disney or on the BBC, with Russell T Davies back and Ncuti Gatwa playing the Doctor, and I did a little review. Michael, he's a Doctor Who fan. He's from America. Block me on Facebook though. Never forgive you for that, Michael. Never forgive you for that, because I like to wind him up about Donald Trump. Because you got to, ain't you? You've got to wind up the Americans about Donald Trump. He's coming for you. But Michael seemed to think I didn't go hard enough on my reviews, and I started writing a reply, and then my reply ended up being like 1,200 words, and I thought maybe I should just do a video to explain what I don't know, what was that click for? I thought I'd better do a kind of I don't know. I started writing a reply to him, and then it kind of went a bit. It went on a bit. Like I said, 1,200 words. I thought this is going to be a bit too far. This is going to be a bit. It's going to be too much for him to read. So I thought I'd do this video instead. So I wrote some of it, and then I'm going to go off script and finish off, because I thought, no, what I'll do, and that's it. And I've already wasted nearly 2 minutes explaining this. So yeah, this is for Michael Markman. This is further thoughts on Doctor Who, the return of Doctor Who. And I come in, I say, that's because you were thinking too hard. This is not a show for thinking people. Stop thinking now and you'll be fine. But seriously, I went in with low expectations, and my remit was solely, was I entertained? And I was. I understood this was a reboot, and this wasn't for me, a white, heterosexual old person, and that to merely questioning the reason and existence of the show would label me a bigot on multiple levels. So I knew exactly where I stood with the series. The space babies were just that, space babies. Say it enough to hide the fact that there was no explanation as to why the babies didn't age physically but did mentally and verbally, because this is one of the issues that Michael had. Some of the things weren't explained, right? However, you can fix this with a throwaway line from the Doctor, right? Oh, I see from the sensor that the space station passed through a cloud of highly charged spasmodic radiation, which seems to have altered their development. A simple line like that, and you have an explanation why the babies didn't age, but their mouths did. It also feeds nicely into "did we grow up wrong" line, But that didn't happen, and so all the thinkers out there, you, Michael, parumph and say that didn't make sense. That's true. But were you entertained? Did you marvel at all the representation? And if you didn't, you are watching it wrong. So I get this chance to act out my answer now. It's very good. But as an introductory episode for those supposedly new Disney viewers, I hear it hasn't done very well globally in the Disney viewer hit parade with Bluey. It's a kids program. It's an animation, knocking it out of the park instead. It does its job in that it tells everyone what the blue box does, who the Doctor is, what his companion's for, and a very minor exposition dump of the last 61 years of Doctor Who lore. So that tick box is marked. That's the function of that episode. Nothing more and nothing less, right? It's very much like that very first episode with Eccleston, reintroducing. But we don't need to do that, because you've had, 20 years of New Who. I hate that, but you've got 20 years of that, so you don't really need to introduce it. But he's doing it because this is new. This isn't like that old Who. I'm doing it again. It's not like that. This is new Who. New Who. That could be a thing. Then we can move on to what I was about the second episode, Devil's Chord. The second episode requires even more not thinking to make it work. The maestro is a god of music. Okay, I got that. Seems like an interesting idea. But this god of music isn't happy with music just being there. It wants to eat all the music and cause the end of the known universe. Why? The motivation doesn't work. For if there's no music, then surely there's no maestro. As a character is a great idea, and it kind of feeds into that Marvel obsession with Loki, who's a god of mischief. But where they're trying to, there's a version of that character that's trying to come to terms with how his own story is written and how he doesn't want to be a villain. He kind of thinks, wow, I could do good things. The maestro just doesn't work. In RTD's world, all villains either want to control everything or destroy everything. Or sometimes they want to do both. You know, look at how the Daleks have been written over the years. Now, if Maestro was intending just controlling humanity via music, that would have been an interesting, storyline. Perhaps it could only exist if humanity plays its tunes, i.e. they could only play the same tune over again. So, when they get to the Beatles studios, the Beatles were just playing that same tune. You could have done that. And if they stopped playing the tune, like the Giggle, I don't know why I put that in, then it ceases to be. Then there are many ways of playing with that concept, but RTD goes for broke with the whole world's going to die shtick that he likes to fall back on. Maybe we could have done some smaller goals for the villain. Unlimited rice pudding, anyone? See what I did there? That's a reference. So yeah, Maestro just doesn't work in terms of its motivation. Also, if it started eating the music in 1925, why did it take so long to get to that point in 1963? Surely it would have been quicker to eat all the music because there's less mechanically reproduced songs. There's no, radio was in its infancy, records, again, in 25, fewer performances. You didn't have the mass market of music that you had in, with the advent of the teenage years of the 50s and into the 60s, so its job became harder. So Maestro should have had it all sewn up by the end of World War II because, a lot of those industries were put on hold because the war, so. But anyway, it's all to do with how Russell T Davies writes. You see, he comes up with a premise, like Space Babies, or in this case, the Beatles, and constructs a story around it. So it's not a natural development, It's not natural because bits are bolted on to that main idea. Beatles, we've got to somehow, right? So he wants to do an episode with the Beatles, but of course he can't use any of their music because it's prohibitively expensive to license Beatles songs. Now there are ways of doing this. He could have gone to their time in Germany when they was playing. All the German gigs that they used to do when I was doing old standards. You could have gone to that period, but that's not interesting. You could have gone back to when they were the Quarrymen, before they were the Beatles, and done something there. But no, we're not doing that. So yeah, because he wants to use the Beatles in this time, he has to create a reason why there are no Beatles songs. And so the idea of Maestro is born, and that's the reason why the situation exists. But why did they bring Maestro into existence in 1925? I'm still pondering the relevance of that. It might relate to something we've yet to see. I mean, they could have just actually had the Maestro appear in 1963 at the EMI recording studios and just stealing the Beatles' mojo. Yeah, baby! That's like Austin Powers I'm trying to do. It still works on paper, and you can still go to the future to see how the impact of those Beatles songs being deleted has on-world effects. It also makes it a more streamlined song, a more personal thing. Again, for Beatles fans, it makes the whole episode about the Beatles. Remove the Beatles from existence and what happens. And a Maestro could be a big Beatles fan. It wants to own the Beatles. Maybe it goes to the future and finds the Beatles. That's where it comes about. After the Time Maker blinks out of existence, Maestro comes into existence, finds all this music, it's in a world of music, and just becomes obsessed with the Beatles. Who wouldn't? And so wants to own the Beatles, wants to eat the Beatles. That comes into a joke I'm just going to do. I'm preempting my own joke here. And you can, it makes the story more streamlined, gives the Maestro character actually targets the Beatles. The story would have been tighter and given the character more of a motivation. And this is a line you could have had. I've always wanted to eat the Beatles. There's a possible line you could have ran. The jokes just write themselves. And if you're going to do a bloody Beatles episode, then make it a bloody Beatles episode. But yeah, this is not for thinking types. It's for Disney, which loves to simplify stories because they want universal appeal rather than British appeal. Because the audience is now a global one, not a British one. So a lot of the humour and the eccentricity that made the show Doctor Who will have to be jettisoned, or they're going to have to explain things for their global audience. So there'll be no more jokes about fish fingers and custard. You see, you'll have to explain what a fish finger is and what custard is to a global audience, and you can't be having that. Instead, have a dance number that was stolen from Austin Powers, but put together by people who've only seen Austin Powers and remembered it wrong. For example, many of the fashions featured in the dance number appear a lot later. The miniskirt, for example, by Mary Quant didn't come into existence until 1964. But I told you, stop thinking! Stop thinking, just concentrate on the multicultural cast, which was completely misrepresented in the dance number because this is us seeing the 20th century through 21st century glasses. And did you see those people in wheelchairs? Did you see them in the studio? Did you see? We even represented them. But they must have had a fucking hard time getting them into EMI recording studios in 1963 because no ramps. And also, disabled people in 1963 wouldn't even be allowed in those studios unless they were the star power, which, again, unlikely because disability in 1963 was... No. Again, they're looking at the past through 21st century glasses, and it doesn't work. You look at it and go, what the is this? Right? It's like having... black Nazis, AI, isn't it? They did that. That's what I'm referenced to. When they put you in AI, I can't remember what the software is called. They asked to create Nazis, and they created multicultural Nazis because inclusivity. And that's what you see here. It's exactly the same kind of thinking. It's stupid thinking, right? But representation. Stop thinking. Look at the rainbows. Just look at the rainbows. But then you realise that the dance number was created just so they could post it on TikTok in a desperate attempt to get that audience into the show. Spoiler, it won't. Yeah, they actually created that dance number so it could be cut and edited and put into TikTok. And Shirley Ballas and one of the dancers from Strictly is in that thing, highly prominent. Again, trying to appeal to that audience. And this is the woolly thinking. This is the woolly thinking. They don't understand how TV works or how sci-fi works, right? Which we're moving on to. Now, I could be utterly and totally critical of the show. I mean, it's really easy to do. It really is easy to do, but I'm not going to do that because it's boring. I'm going to try and come at this and appreciate it for what it is. Remember, it's not for me. Look at me. It's not for me. They didn't make it for me, right? They didn't make it for me. I know a lot of people hated the Chibnall era and his attempt with the show, but I thought taking it in a more drama-led direction was something different and something the show needed. Again, tonally, it was more like a young adult drama, because there are different kinds of kids shows. If you've ever seen it, you've got the ones that are kind of wild and wacky, which Doctor Who can be. But it turned it more into a young adult drama, and I think that was I thought that was an interesting way of moving forward, and that would have probably worked better on the Disney platform. But Russell T Davies seems to think that he can write a show for the kids when the kids aren't interested in long-form TV these days, and he's fallen into a trap that a lot of media that is created now by committee has fallen into this trap, where he seems to be aiming for an audience that doesn't actually exist. In an interview with the actor who plays Maestro, they said something like, well, for every bigot who stops watching, we'll attract 3 to 5 gay viewers. It doesn't work like that, because not all gay people like sci-fi. Not all people who enjoy drag queens are going to watch sci-fi either, and vice versa. Not everybody likes comedy. Not anybody likes I don't watch Strictly Come Dancing. Everybody has taste. Everyone has taste. And the problem with taste and that feeds into this ideological thing we're going to move into, is taste is kind of hardwired into you, a bit like, I don't know, your sexuality. You can't break out of it. You might sometimes dip in, but it doesn't make you a fan, right? It doesn't make you a fan, because we all like different things, and whereas they're trying to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. And so, and when I mean everyone, I'm talking about inclusivity. There is wide appeal, and then there's this new inclusive appeal, which isn't inclusive, because if you're a certain age, if you're a certain colour, if you're a certain sexuality, and if you don't agree with everything we tell you, that's not inclusive. That's exclusive. It's the contradictory nature of the times we live in. You can, you can't. You can, you can't. Right? In other messages, we've been told, if you don't like it, fuck off. I think Shooty Gatwa himself said that. This is a fair message, but with the multitude of alternative media entertainment out there, you should be very careful what you wish for. And while Disney and the streaming service have the potential to access millions and millions of viewers, many of these shows now are minority niche affairs, and this is unsustainable. You've seen it in movies. Movies, every blockbuster now is getting lower and lower returns because a certain generation is not going to the cinema. It's the younger generation. They have no need for it. They're not interested, and they're not interested in this. There was a time when program makers were aiming to create entertainment for the biggest audience, to create something for wide appeal, but that's no longer the intention. Then we have to talk about the various ideologies that are pushed into the show, and this is where I stopped writing, because I thought, wait a minute, I've done 1,200 words, I might as well blather on at the computer and talk about it. So we have all these ideologies. Now, Russell T Davies isn't the first gay TV producer. He certainly isn't the first gay TV producer to run Doctor Who. John Nathan Turner, who did it in the, was it 70s, 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Right? That's it. But he didn't feel the need to push his messages in as blatantly. There probably were messages in, but I come from a time when sci-fi was subtle, that you could get messages in without it being banged over the head, bonk, without being hit on the head with the little ideology hammer, bonk, bonk, let's do this, bonk. And this is where we're at. And because we're told, if you don't like this, you're a bigot. And again, I don't care who you love, as long as you're not making me do it, get on with it. Do it. Have a good time. Have a good time all the time. It doesn't bother me. But it's when that message is just not subtle. Because I'm of the mind, I'm old-fashioned. I don't really want any kind of romance in Doctor Who. I don't want the Doctor falling in love with his companions, gay, straight, or otherwise. Not interesting. That's why I like the Captain Jack character, the pansexual character, because he can be that foil. He can do that, but not Doctor. The Doctor he's a god. He's like the maestro or the toy maker. He is, or she is, they is. Oh, it gets complicated. They are from who knows where. That's the mystery of them. There's always been this mystery about the Doctor, and we've kind of seen it with the Timeless Child. That's why I like the Timeless Child strand, because the Doctor is something else, and it's the Time Lords have got their powers from whatever or whoever that child that the Doctor is going to be. Oh, my brain hurts. That's what makes it unique. But yeah, you have all these ideologies put in the show, and you get it with a lot of shows now, and that's great. That's great. But I don't think a lot of people are that interested, because we are all progressive. There aren't that many true bigots out there. Again, with the whole transgender issue, I don't care. If you're an adult and you want to do that, that's fine, right? Carry on. Cut whatever bits off you want to do. Get on with it. As long as they're not my bits, get on with it. Fine. Do it. Nothing to do with me. But again, we have issues with children being drawn into this ideology, especially children that are again on the ASD spectrum. As a son with that, I know how vulnerable and how malleable those children can be, and if they're access to the internet, it's a recipe for actual fucking disaster, right? So until someone is way in their adult years, Keep kids out of that ideology. That's it. Because when you're a kid, you don't know what you want to be. I wanted to be a spaceman. Here I am. Didn't bloody work, did it? You know, so that's my ideal. That's my view on that kind of ideology. Again, whether you're gay, straight, otherwise, I don't care. Couldn't bother me. Race, don't bother me. What do I care? I came out from the East End, a multicultural school in the East End in the 70s, where we all used to get on. We used to play together. Again, when I was in, what school would it have been? Secondary school. My friends were black, Asian, whatever. When I was in a hospital with pneumonia, the only person who visited me was my Asian best friend, Amjad. I don't know if he's watching. He probably isn't. I haven't seen him in 35 years. But this is the thing. I don't mind representation when it's done logically. Again, when you go to the future, there shouldn't be any white people on Earth because we probably will all be, crossbred, interbred. So we can do that. But when you go back to historical times, it doesn't always gel, does it? So there's that cognitive dissonance that you have to indulge in. But I'm not going to lose my shit over it. I just think it's daft. I think it's daft more than anything else. But hey, representation. But if you question it, you're a racist. If you question any of this, you're a bigot. You're anything. And whatever. And the representation that all old people are bigots is the biggest laugh of all, because you've got to remember that those people in their 60s and 70s are the people that were in the 60s who were getting naked, who were painting their bodies with body paint, getting high and having free love, and being inclusive originally the first time round. So that's a great misnomer. What happens when you get old, though, is you look around and you see all the bullshit that's going on around you, and you go, wait a minute, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit. And people don't like it when you call out bullshit. And a lot of this is bullshit, And what Davis is doing is he is going to push the show into the hands of Disney, because they've got it for 2 seasons. If it doesn't perform, they're either going to drop it and then he's going to have to find somebody else to fund it, or we're going to go back to the BBC and the wobbly sets, or Disney's going to turn around and say, nice show you got there. And the BBC are going to drop their knickers for money, because they will. The BBC needs the cash. And so then it'll be an American show with American lead actor, and it won't be British Doctor Who anymore. And that's fine. That's how it's going to go. Right, you heard it here. So yeah, really, I think you can't be so dismissive of the fans. I think you should, also appreciate the history of the show somewhat. I think you should also appreciate the old fans and the new fans. We can love them all. I think you should also be subtle. There's a lack of subtlety in the writing now. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And also the real problem is Russell T Davies going back to the show, because we're just going to replay what's gone on before. The terrible specials that we had, they were absolutely appalling with David Tennant. Again, somebody you used to enjoy, mind you. He says if you're anti-trans or question trans, you're a bigot and should fuck off as well. Well, I question it, because why not? Why can't we question these things? Only in this world that a man puts on a dress and suddenly say he is a persecuted minority. They're usually white straight men in dresses. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. And it's a funny time. We've normalised a whole realm of male sexuality that's dark and disturbing, but you're not allowed to talk about it. Again, if you're a man and you are flooded with testosterone, you know what all this is about. And if you're a gay man too, you're always hypersexualized, and you should know even more about it. But I've gone on. I've disturbing Michael with my talk of hypersexualization. But yeah, you can be totally critical of the show. It's nowhere. It's It's what I expected. It's what I expected it to be. I didn't expect anything more or anything less. I think Shooty Gat was an interesting choice. I want to see more of his acting chops. At the moment, it's all bright and brash. We'll see if he can do gravitas. I don't know if he can. I mean, even Whittaker could do that. You know, there are no quiet. It's all because young people they don't get it unless it's and that's it. So yeah, I've gone on an awful lot about Doctor Who, and yeah, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of people who have made videos that have been watched a lot more than this will be, who have been more critical than me. But you've got to understand where this show is now coming from, that it's written by committee, that there are certain inclusivity targets that need to be met, and this is it. And ultimately, they are creating a show for an audience that isn't there. And they'll figure it out. I speak to my daughter. I say, any of your friends watch Doctor Who? She goes, no. Anyone in the year? No. Anyone in the school? Probably maybe one or two. So in a school of, I don't know, 400 kids, you may have literally a handful of viewers. That's very different from when I was a kid, when near enough all the boys and some of the girls watched Doctor Who in the 70s and 80s. You know, so they are chasing a dwindling audience. And again, a lot of shows do this, a lot of shows, and they're happy with their, 3.5 million viewers on streaming and whatever. This will probably be rounded up. I think it got overnights of, was it 2.6 and 2.4 for the first two episodes, and that'll be rounded up with iPlayer, playback. It'll probably get about, I don't know, 6 million views. I don't know. Be interested to see how well iPlayer does. So we'll see. But yeah, it kind of makes terrestrial television kind of irrelevant. But the important point is don't listen to what an old fart like me thinks. My kids really liked the 2 episodes. They thought they were very good. They thought Space Babies were delightful. They just found that really fun. They liked that episode a lot. Eric, we love Eric. Eric was good fun. Now, I watched both episodes twice because I suffer for my art. Because I watched it once on my own and once with the kids, and I asked the kids what they thought. The second one, they liked it, but I think again it went on a bit too long. My son, he got a bit bored with it. I think again it was the same thing that I thought. There was kind of there's patchy momentum in it, but overall they thought it was okay. And my daughter was a big fan of Jodie Whittaker. Again, did well for the girls. The girls like that. But we'll wait and see how it goes. But they notice all the daft stuff too. So, so that's it. Anyway, sorry for going on too long. This was for Michael Markham. He's got more than he bargained for. He probably won't even watch this. I need to give this a tasty title. I just realised I had it on bloody autofocus, and of course it's probably focused on the shelves and not my beautiful visage. Of course, this will get nowhere near as much as all those horrible racist, homophobe, transphobic bigots who do Doctor Who reviews. I'm just a guy. But I'm going to tell you how it is, But this is the nature. This is the nature of writing now. Again, I watched an interview with a guy called Gareth Roberts, who was a writer for Doctor Who back in the day, but he's been cancelled because he's gender. I'm not going to say gender critical, because that's just stupid. I'm gender realist, like I am, or a sexual realist, because there's only 2 sexes and 3 sexualities. We don't talk about the other 2. You can work those out. One of them barks and one of them plays with toys. You've got to be careful what you say, haven't you? But yeah, Gareth Roberts was saying, when he wrote for Doctor Who, and all of his writing, because he wrote a lot of Doctor Who novels, he's a gay writer. He said, my gayness never came into it. He said, because I wanted to appeal to a big audience. and writing that kind of thing into Doctor Who was just not even, it wasn't even part of who he was. He wanted to write. The story was important, and that's the thing. Paramount is it a good story? And if you shoe in, where you put your genitals into the story, that's when it becomes, subtle it ain't. And this is where we're at. But anyway, if you're gay, straight, bi, like wearing your mother's knickers, good for you. More power to your elbow, isn't it? As long as you're not getting me doing it. And that's how we should all live our lives. All right. Thank you for watching. There's only one more thing to say, and if you don't know what that is, I don't know what it is either, because this is a reply, but ta-ta. Yeah, ta-ta.